Since 1992, a Swiss pharmaceutical company has developed and known a method to produce vastly more food through, just regular agriculture in, greater supply, plus hardier, more nutrient dense, more protein, all that type of stuff. Yet the secret is being held. I'm showing something here which I'm going to lead up to that's a little bit different from the actual topic, which is a way to change genetically modified seeds into seeds that are more robust than seeds that we even have today. I'm showing a Lakowski multiwave oscillator, and this may actually be a way to crack the patent that was developed in 1992 in a Swiss pharmaceutical company that we do not know exactly what it was. So it's called the primeval code, the ecological alternative to the controversial, well, not controversial, I consider it blatantly bad genetically modified seeds, right? But it was a biological discovery at the pharmaceutical giant SIPA, now Novartis, which is in Switzerland. The laboratory experiments there, it was Guido Ebner and Heinz Schertz exposed cereal seeds and fish eggs to an electrostatic field, in other words, to a high voltage field in which no current flows. Now, let me explain that. In other words, I don't know the exact details of I got a little more on how the patent works, not exactly, but the seeds were put on a plastic non-conductive tray, and there was electricity above and below the seeds that was high voltage, but it was not passing through the tray. But somehow it was in the field of electricity. I don't know the distance between, the two high voltage platters, whatever you want to call those, or arrays that were where the seeds were in a plastic tray between them. I don't know how many volts it was. I heard it was very high voltage. I don't know how long they treated them. I don't know, but I have a vague idea what the patent is, and I'm going to offer a suggestion, an alternative. And I put this out in a couple times before, but I'll try to make it more brief so maybe people's attention spans will hold up. So unexpectedly, primeval organisms grew out of these seeds and eggs. A fern that no botanist was able to identify, primeval corn with up to 12 ears per stalk. In other words, you're getting far more abundant, hardy food. Wheat that was ready to be harvested in just 4 to 6 weeks as opposed to several months. Giant trout, extinct in Europe for 130 years. They got that from the fish eggs. With salmon hooks. And these organisms access their own genetic memories. In other words, it was already in the seeds. It was in the DNA of the seeds, even in the genetically modified. Because genetically modified doesn't, it's like they take an attribute and they, make that attribute number one to come out, but they don't change the DNA structure that's in there. Even genetically modified. So you could actually take genetically modified, treat it with this, and change it back to something more robust than it even was before it was genetically modified. So the Swiss pharmaceutical group patented a process and stopped the research in 1992. This almost reminds me of like Robert Otto Becker, the MD, who was, it's a different thing, different topic, but his research was stopped in the late 1970s when he was regenerating limbs on severed limbs of rats, which has very big implications for, being able to repair the human body and, traumatic injuries, or even if, a limb was lost, you can actually grow it back with this technology. He was doing it with rats, and he found out later, I'll just tell you what it was. He found out later on he only worked with this silver electrode with microelectricity, and the reason it only worked with the silver electrode and not a platinum electrode or a gold electrode or anything was that the microelectricity was producing silver ions right at the point of the injury. And as long as those silver ions were being produced and that silver electrode was being held right there, everything would grow back. The bone, the muscle, the veins, the skin, the fur, the whole damn everything. Amazing, right? You think they would want to notice that? That it also tells you that some of these wacky conspiracy theories that you think that they don't have cloning going on. You ever hear these stories from David Icke or something? Cloning. Hey, maybe it's true. I don't know. If this guy was doing this back in the 70s, he got defunded. It's something they probably don't want the public to know about. This was The primeval code, primeval cereals generated by an electric field, in contrast to modern strains of seeds, required hardly any fertilizers. So you wouldn't be worried about, pollution runoff into the rivers and getting it into the other soils and into your, aquifers and your well water and all this kind of stuff. You wouldn't have to worry about the pesticides getting everywhere and contaminating other foods because you wouldn't need them. So Roth, another guy, public guy, had somebody that didn't work for the pharmaceutical place in Switzerland. He replicated the SIPA experiments in detail in his university in 2001. 9 years later, after the first experiments were proven, 9 years later he tried it again and he was successful. Now they're not telling you what this is, and I think it's damn simple, but we might have an idea that probably will work. That is not exactly the same, but I'll explain a little bit. This wound up being a little longer than I thought. Your attention span is already gone. I know it. This is a millennial generation. No entirely new organism is created. So, in other words, the DNA already has this in there. It's in there. It's just in there. It's like whatever expression you want to bring out the strongest. That's how genetically modified works. They don't recreate the DNA. They don't destroy it. They just want a certain attribute to come out stronger. Now this, with this electric field or whatever this is, or this bringing in the energies, is actually causing the strongest expressions of the DNA to come out. So you're getting the hardiest plants, the hardiest fish, whatever it is. The electrostatic field, only with the gene expression, is altered. It's a retrieval of existing gene. Okay, so you're not modifying nothing. You're just bringing out the best. That's all it's doing. The cereal exposed to the electrostatic field developed new proteins, which people looked for in the original wheat to no avail. So, in other words, the wheat was not only did it grow better, faster. In other words, they grew it faster. It was more abundant. Even after it matured, it was far more abundant, even though it grew in less than half the time. It did not need herbicides or pesticides to stay hardy. And on top of it, it was far more nutritious, with more proteins. But you know what? The big, and I'll interject later what I really think is going on. But anyway, furthermore, it surprisingly produced much larger roots that could control the group. So in other words, that's what helped them grow faster. The root system. In case of our manipulated wheat, growth was so rapid that it was ripe in 4 weeks instead of the usual 7 weeks. So it was set to go real fast, right? Now, the original guys that developed this in Switzerland both passed away unexpectedly in 2001, the same year that this experiment was replicated elsewhere. Figure it out. Anyway, well, here I showed this multiwave oscillator here because I think this thing could probably work to replicate that experiment. Maybe. Because this was developed actually in the 1920s. It really was not. Well, George Lakowski did all the hard grunt work putting this together. The idea came from Nikola Tesla, and when George Lakowski was, trying to put his idea together in Paris, France. He's a Russian immigrant to Paris, France. He couldn't get it working exactly the way it was supposed to. And then Tesla came back in and showed him, hey, you got to do this, that, and all this other stuff. There's a lot of Lakowski coils out there. I don't know if there's some of the ones that are produced in outside. I'm not sure where the real ones are produced. I heard Croatia produces a real one, but I know there's only plans available from Tony and Bruno in Italy. I got those plans. I don't know how to make it, though. It's a little too complicated for me. But they got some other places in New Zealand that make some that are probably pretty close. But it uses 3 Tesla coils in a control box, I'll call it that. Then they have a Tesla coil on each side. And in between here, the patient would stand. You can also use this on plants. It'll throw off cancer. If you give a plant a cancer, they did experiments, it would throw off the cancer. You would stay between these array of coils. It almost reminds me of that same thing where they're talking about putting seeds in a plastic tray between 2 fields of electricity. They're not telling you what the electricity voltage is or the distance of the fields or how long the treatment. But I bet you this would work. This might even be better because this worked to cure people of all kinds of stuff. As a matter of fact, in the early 1940s, because George Lakowski was hit by a limousine in a hit-and-run accident in New York City in 1942, and that was the end of the device. And then we had Hitler invade Paris, and that was where his headquarters was with the devices. That's why a lot of that stuff disappeared. But right before, like in early, say 1940, 1941, they were using this as beauty treatments. It was actually making people younger. I got one of these. It's a portable one. It only has 1 Tesla coil instead of having 5, and plus the ray. It's way dumbed down from the real one. But I can tell you, it does make you feel like you're more energetic. I got to use it more. I reset the spark gap on the tungsten rods, whatever the hell it is in the back. I set it at a 1/16 of an inch versus 1/8 inch. It probably is better to set it that way. It's less noisy. The real ones aren't that noisy. You know, I got a cheap version of it. It's like $1,000. But I think you can get ones from New Zealand. They're like $4,000 or something, or $3,500 or something. I might get one later. I don't know. I don't know where the hell I'm going to put it though. Where the hell are you going to put all this stuff? Anyway, but this would be an idea to try. And actually, if you look, way back when, this is examples of, here's a woman with facial cancer, right? 15 days later, see the facial cancer is like going away. This is with the Milankovsky multiwave oscillator in 1932. 2 sessions. And then after a month, another 15 days, gone. So obviously it strengthens the body. And I said about this device, I don't think it's doing it with frequencies. I think because the big hint, as I said before, is that it brings in energies in and around us. The reason I say that's one of the theories of how it works, that we don't see energies in and around us that we don't see. And the reason I say that's the real way it's working more than anything, rather than the actual frequencies, because when they put this entire device in a Faraday cage, so it doesn't interfere with other electronic equipment, it doesn't work as well. It doesn't work nearly as well. So the Faraday cage is blocking the energies in and around us, not all of it, but most of it, you see? Because if it was just the frequencies that was being imparted into the body, it would, it wouldn't, the Faraday cage that was around this device, not between the subject and the device, but around the entire device, wouldn't affect it. So it's pulling in something else. And that might be why. That might be even how this patent is working with the that Swiss patent when they're talking. It was between the seeds were between two fields, high voltage fields, but there was no voltage going through the seeds, and the seeds were sitting on, or the fish eggs were sitting on a non-conductive tray, like a plastic tray. It reminds me of the same thing like with this thing. Like, in other words, you would have, the seeds or whatever, the fish eggs between these 2 coils, and you would run it. I don't know how long you would run it, but, it's amazing nobody picked up on this. It's amazing. And, sometimes you get aggravated with the Christian stuff, because you got to tell you the truth, I hear this stuff. Well, Jesus is going to come down and fix everything later on. Well, that's good. If that was the case, you shouldn't have had the American Revolution in 1776, because you should have just prayed to Jesus. I'm getting on with, because I'm knocking the religious people right now, because they really stop a lot of this stuff. They really do. And we should have never fought Hitler, because we should have just prayed to Jesus, because Jesus would fix it. Okay? Once you get the freaking knowledge, run with it, take off, and don't sit on your ass and go eat a donut and wonder what Kim Kardashian's going to do or something. That's usually what happens. That's your American. That's the way people. That's why this stuff does. I tell you what, the people with the money don't even know about this. You know why? Because they're affected by the BBBS. I call them the big bucks BS. The big bucks BS professionals that get around the big money, and if there's something like this, the guy would figure out, hey, what do I need you for? I'll just buy this. You're done. I paid $5,000. I bought one. I don't know what the ones from Croatia cost. They say you got to email them. And I'm thinking, boy, if you got to email them, they probably want some astronomical money. I might get one of these from New Zealand. I don't know where the hell I'm going to put it. So, I might get a freaking 1841. I am going to get an 1841 Confederate, what do you call that, cannon? Mountain howitzer. So, it's going to cost several grand. $5,000 or some crap like that. I got enough projects going here. I got a cheap one of these things. I'm going to use it right now after this video. I'm done with this. and go watch it go bzz, scare the cats and shit. I'll close the bedroom door so I don't hear them. But this thing can solve the food problem. We can solve everything. And I want to tell you another caveat on something else here too. I read a few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, it was in Business Insider. They're talking the tech giants. The tech giants were talking about they got ways they're going to live 1,000 years old or forever. And then they're saying, look at these vitamins I'm taking, and look at this healthy organic food I'm eating. And I'm thinking, you're not telling us what you're going to do, buddy. I already knew about this multiwave oscillator. I also knew about the patents that you can put the DNA in your DNA directly, the glutathione gene. I could ad-lib about a lot more things about what's going on. And to tell you the truth, if you look at the ancient Sumerian text, which is predates the Bible by 4,000 years, nothing in the ancient Sumerian text disagrees with the Bible. I'm talking about the real Bible, the Old Testament, which is the Bible, the Bible, in my book anyway. All right, I think Jesus was a great rabbi. That's the way I look at him. I think you should not ignore his teachings, but I kind of diverge from the Christianity stuff myself quite a bit. But hey, do whatever you want. I mean, it's a free country, But if you look at the Bible and you look at the ancient Sumerian text, the ancient Sumerian texts have everything that's in the Bible, the original Bible, the real one, right? Except they tell you, God that created mankind was not like what you think it is in the Bible. It was, I don't want to call them aliens because that gets a little freaking high and falutin, but it was like, souped up freaking smart people, really smart people that live like ridiculously long, like 300,000 years according to Sumerians. And they took some of their DNA from one of their guys that died, and they threw it into the human race, and they made us, or they threw it into people that, whatever was here, and they made us. And that's why the races are so damn different from each other. You think that was evolution? No way. And unfortunately, this is probably why the whites are getting clobbered too, because I think, the whites are getting too damn smart. And you look at all the shit that's going on, even this thing here, this Lukowski coil, Tesla, white guy, right? Einstein, white guy, whatever. I don't think the guys that created this like us getting too advanced, and maybe they don't. This is why a lot of this stuff is being held down, because there's another implication of freaking living longer. And say you live, because if you look at in the Bible, man would only live to be 120 years old. That's true. And in the ancient Sumerian text, it says that too. But they said that the guys, the ones that actually created us, which they only created us to work for them. That's really what happened. They commanded that we don't live that long, and maybe they don't want us living really, because we're already figuring out how we can lengthen the telomeres and all this kind of garbage, and we can not just do it electronically, but with concentrations of astragalus root, the ancient Chinese yellow herb, and that's why a lot of this stuff is being ignored. It's not just evil money. It's not like just the FDA, the EMA. I think there's something else going on, because I think this planet, you talk, this David Icke guy, even though I think he's winging it with a lot of stuff he says, and I mean, I'm not telling you like I know everything here for sure, but when he's talking about, reptilians and all this weird, it's probably true. There's something behind the elite, quote unquote, that is actually dumbing down and holding back the human race, because they don't want us getting too smart. That's probably what's going on. There's a lot of stuff like this Lukowski coil, the Rife technology, a lot of stuff, and there's cheap stuff out there. I always talk about that Parazapper thing. That little box, that thing is about the size of a cigarette, pack of cigarettes. I'm wearing it right now. I got the paddles around my waist. I'm running, the 6-pack one they call the Parazapper 6-pack. That stupid thing gives me energy, man. I mean, you got to run it a real lot, but it works. So, they don't want you to know all this stuff. And the people that sit back in the lounge chair saying, well, some engineer would have freaking figured this out, or the medical industry would have figured it out. They get paid all this money. No, they won't. They don't give a crap, man. You know what it is? It's just like you got a guy that's an engineer and knows everything about buildings. And you tell them, how come Building 7 fell down in 2001 in September, without a plane hitting it? He was like, well, I don't know. It was the shock waves from the other buildings. Why? Because he doesn't want to say what he really knows, right? Worms is really what you get in the professional area. I'm diverging from what I'm saying here, but that's really why a lot of this stuff doesn't get out. And then you got the other people that are religious that, when they see something like this and they're like overwhelmed, they're like, well, Jesus will fix it in the long run. Yeah, man. Like, have a reefer, you Christian. I mean, come on, man. What's the matter with you guys? That's why, it's why the Emperor Julian, the apostate, used to feed you to the lions. He was okay, man, because at least he was trying to get the Second Temple going. But you know what? He got killed fighting the Parthians over there, if you don't know what I'm talking about, so what? Anyway, over and out. So this solves everything, right? The problem is, people are too dumb to freaking pick up the ball and run with it. And actually, Churchill used to say this. He says, a man might come across the truth twice in his entire life. And what does he do? He stumbles upon the truth. He falls down. He sees the truth. The first thing he does, he gets up, dusts himself off, and runs in the other direction. It's usually what happens. Right? I mean, this thing here, beautifying woman, you think woman would want this thing? Oh, yeah. I mean, not only is it... I think that's why I think this thing would work on the seeds, because it knocked off the... It doesn't, like, kill the cancer. What it does is strengthen the body. It brings out the strongest attributes of the body. That's why it reverse ages and stuff. That's why I think this Lakowski multiwave oscillator would work on its seeds. I might get the one that's from New Zealand. Actually, I was showing you... Yeah, this... Actually, I was showing you... This was actually from Altered States in New Zealand. I'm probably going to buy one of their things maybe someday. After I get my Confederate cannon. Paint my El Camino. I already got a cheap one right now, so from Amazing One, the engineering firm in New Hampshire, USA. So, but you know what? Advertising makes it, and will not be advertised, And I can tell you, they want it. There's something going on way beyond just money. There is something that does not want the human race. And you can say it's a devil. Well, I say it's freaking the guys that made us. And they are too big to fight, because they're probably, I think we're just like a bunch of damn gerbils on this earth, and that's how they look at us. That's probably what's going on. And religion is designed to control people. That's what it is. I'll say something else here too. Remember the Great Pyramids? Oh, the Great Pyramids in Egypt. The Great Pyramid of Giza. That was a power plant actually built, I don't know, 13,000 years ago or something. Later on, the pharaohs came along, or the other ones, the human pharaohs, right? And the pharaohs, the later ones, not the original ones that were the gods that lived like 300,000 years and stuff like that. Those are the original pharaohs that reigned for 2,000 years, which would be like 2 months over here, for us. And the pharaohs that came on later, and they put a tomb in there. They started a whole bunch of BS religion about it. So why? Because they can control people. Religion is controlling you, man. I mean, I'm not knocking what Jesus says, the great rabbi, okay? I'm not saying nothing bad against him. But, I don't go quite as far as saying into Christianity and thinking he's going to save the world and come back. And, I just think the red words of the King James Version of the Bible is good to go. That's good, Rabbi Jesus. He was actually just a Jewish reformer. He wasn't trying to create a religion. But Christians also very much seem to just stop. And if they see the truth and it's a little bit too much for them, well, in the long run, Revelation says, oh, that's great. I mean, why don't you just quote, in the long run, Revelation says, well, you're standing in the middle of the road and a Mack truck is coming at you. You won't do that, though, right? Anyway, I got a beef with some of the religious kooks out there, you know what I mean? Anyway, I'm not like totally non-religious, but there's only so much I buy into. Over and out.